we go. We are Zooming again. Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm John Miller, founding attorney at Rock Solid Law here in Jacksonville Beach, and soon to be Ponte Vedra. We're very excited about our new office, which is under construction and coming along really nicely. A little background on this subject, on today's subject. I began practicing in downtown Jacksonville for a couple of excellent litigation firms beginning in 1984, 1985. Before I moved my practice and opened my independent practice at the beaches in 1991. Why that's important to today's subject is that my litigation practice was centered around business, commercial litigation. And after a number of years, thankfully successfully, of trial work, I came to the conclusion that I really prefer deal making and what I call the care and feeding of small business rather than fighting over the scraps after a deal has gone bad. So what we do in our firm is our very best to keep our firms out of litigation, out of trial, and try to get them into organizations that are well put together, properly put together, and won't be fought over, and contracts in the same regard. So having been on the litigation side, particularly well placed me, although I won't claim that I planned it that way, to know what can happen when things are done poorly and what the result is down at the courthouse. And I will tell you, having been predominantly successful in my trial practice, even the winners are unhappy at the end because going to court's expensive. And those dollars could better be put in a small business, particularly to marketing and sales, to product development, to bringing on new team members to progress the business. So there's all sorts of good reasons to stay out of the courtroom. You know, like every other law student, or most of them, I think, I wanted to be the next Perry Mason or LA Law or whatever your generation is, Hollywood presentation of what a lawyer should be. I knew some lawyers coming up. Most of my family are preachers and soldiers, so I only had one role model in my family for what a lawyer could be. And I thought I wanted to be in the courtroom. Later found out I really didn't. So in the 90s, representing business clients, I came to do a transactional practice, which means buying and selling entities, creating contracts, making sure everything is done to the letter, dotting I's, crossing T's, and putting a bow on deals. And I actually love that practice. What I've found to be absolutely true is that the companies that have an outside general counsel on board prosper and stay out of court. And that's what we try to do. So it's also, it might be interesting to you that my practice began some 15 years before LLCs were even possible in Florida. Little quick history, LLCs came out of Central Europe, closing in on 100 years ago now, and not surprisingly migrated to South America about the time of World War II. If you know your history, you'll know how that migration took place. The idea behind an LLC, see, when I started my practice, small businesses were all sub-S corporations, which is a great liability entity, and in some circumstances is the best entity to use depending on what a particular business and its owners have as goals. Yet, the problem with a sub-S corporation is that all of the formality of a C corporation or a large corporation are required, or the entity can be set aside as a sham, which would then allow creditors to come after the assets of the individual in the event of an unsuccessful judgment or lawsuit or some other unfortunate occurrence. So I found over time, and this continues to be true today, that most small business clients simply don't have time to do things like annual minutes and think it's a hassle to have to pay somebody to do them for them. So the sub-S corporation, while an excellent entity, if properly cared for, often is not. I often have people come in, we're 12 years behind on our annual minutes, And what are you going to charge me for that? Well, I'm going to charge the same thing I would have done if you'd done it every year properly, because now it's an urgency, right? There's always a reason they come in. Either they can't open a bank account because they're behind, or they're about to get sued and they know that they're in trouble, that sort of thing. So an evolution in business organizations happened so that the sole proprietor, the mom and pop, has no liability protection and basically risks everything that they own individually in their business. So the idea of the LLC is an advancement of the concept of the partnership, the limited liability partnership, etc., so that there would be an entity less formal than the corporation, but with the liability shield offered by a corporate formation. Thus, in 1999, the LLC statute was adopted in Florida. I well remember when that was new. I mean, that was 8 years after this firm was founded and well into my practice. And it was like, what is an LLC? And I believe I have a book over there on my bookshelf entitled LLCs. Has its time come? Right? Well, that's well over 20 years ago. And now we know that LLCs are regularly used by many, many clients. And there are multiple instances where it's the best selection of the business entity. There are also many instances where it's not. And today's subject is don't screw up your business. So my basic premise is I've spent 37 years plus law school, so I'm right at 40 years learning about law and particularly about business law. I'm pretty good at it, well versed in it, know a lot about it. Things I don't know, I know how to find out, right? You do what you do well. You know something that you do that I have no idea how to do. And it's probably the basis of your business and of so many businesses and of so many business owners who are not on this Zoominar today, but whom I hope will watch at our webinar page, Rock Solid Law /videos at our website, and learn about why it is such an error to do self-help in entity formation. I will tell you right now, I have a brand new client, and they had a lawyer but didn't listen to her and didn't do their interior corporate governance documents correctly. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lawsuit in California, and it's going to be ugly, and people are going to spend money they should not otherwise have had to spend. So my my experience tells me that people love to, now that they can just jump online and form an entity at any time, they love to do that. There are, I mean, 100 ways that somebody that doesn't know what they're doing can screw that up. And there are 100 ways that you can make bad decisions on what that entity needs to be and exactly how to form it and exactly what interior documents you need to make your business have the best opportunity to prosper. Why do I know this? 37 years of people coming to me after they screwed it up and saying, can you fix this? You know what the answer is? Yeah, I can fix it, but it takes a lot of work. And guess what? It's actually going to be more expensive to fix your screw up than it would have been for me to do it right for you in the first place. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time because I see it time and time and time again. It costs more to fix the do-it-yourself self-help screw up in setting up an organization than it would be for us to have formed it for them in the first place. And of course, we're going to do it correctly. And if we didn't do it correctly, we'd have to fix it at no extra charge, right? So there's a common sense business reason to bring on your attorney and have them do the work right the first time. Remember the old saying, a stitch in time saves nine? In case you don't, that means if you sew up a hole before it gets too big, you don't have to sew up 9 extra stitches to close the hole once it gets large. That's a really, really perfect analogy for what happens when people go on Sunbiz, form their own entity, and screw it up. You can't just go on Sunbiz and unscrew it up. You have to do things properly through the proper channels and through the proper documents, the proper filings to get that corrected. And that takes A, knowledge and know-how, and B, effort. So what you're really paying the lawyer for is not clicking the button on the website. Obviously, a trained monkey can do that, and many people do it all day, every day, right? And a trained monkey can press the wrong button and screw it up. And I see it all the time, guys. Just see it all the time. Can you fix this? Yeah, I can fix it. Got to cost you, right? I don't like fixing things and charging you. I'm not about to do it without charging you, but I don't like having to do that. I'd rather get it right in the first place, tell you you have a perfectly formed entity, recommend anything else you may need coming down the pike, and send you out to do business, be a capitalist, be an entrepreneur, earn money. Why do I like that? Why do I like that? Because if I get you started on the right foot, I'm your guy forever. Rock Solid Law is going to be your go-to business lawyer for life. You go make money, we do our part, and it's success. And you know what that success equals? New employees. That success equals a growing economy. And that's why I call small business the heartbeat of the American economy. We really are. And I say that as a small business owner. I don't like spending money on professional services that I don't need to have. But I'll tell you what, the line item on my monthly P&L for professional services outside of legal, right, is a significant item, and it's important. And those people bring value to the business of my practice, and I'm happy to pay them. I have a tax advisor. I have a bookkeeper. We also work with financial advisors. I work with an outside managing partner, CEO. I work with an outside chief operating officer. All those people are important because they know things I don't. And as our firm continues to grow, I know how important it is that I write their check. Well, it's all electronic now, every single month. So there are lots and lots of considerations in forming an LLC. And I have to submit to you that most people never think of what they are, right? Who's going to own what and how much? How is that going to be set up? Do you have a possibility of being a minority owned business? What do you need to do to establish that? Are you going to be profit or nonprofit? How are you going to make sure that the proper liability shield is in effect? What's the LLC going to own? Who's going to own the LLC? Is it in a trust? Is it owned individually? And single member LLCs are still a problem, folks. There's an issue with reverse liability piercing that can get to the company assets for a judgment against the individual. Very important that we walk all the way around that issue, look at it from every side, and make sure that we properly protect you, the business owner, in setting up that entity. All right. So the single member, originally in 1999, there was no such thing as a single member LLC. It just didn't work. They fixed that hole. And now all these years later, it's worked out that there's a reverse piercing that came out of a case, a lawsuit, and has now been statutorily adopted. So there are a significant number of considerations. If it's more than one member, and I'm going to tell you in most every instance, we want to consider there being more than one member to the entity, then you need internal governance documents. And I'm going to tell you right now, the form you found online is not the one that's going to protect you when there's a problem, right? You checked a box, but you didn't do any planning ahead, and you didn't get what you needed by using those. My best example is I was reading, and I no longer remember if it was an LLC operating agreement or a shareholder agreement, but I was reading this agreement, and there was this legal term in there, and I was like, man, I never heard of that word before. What could that be? Oh, I see I moved out of the way. Just got a bottle of wine from a happy client. Isn't that nice? And aren't they smart? They put their own, they put a label on the flip side of the bottle, so I'd remember who they were and who gave me the gift. Anyway, that was an aside. So as I was saying, I'm reading this document. There's this term of art. It's clearly a legal term of art. And I'm like, whoa. At that time, I'd probably practiced 25, 30 years. Like, man, there's something I haven't heard, because, we're all curious about what we don't know in the law or in our field. So I looked this legal term up. It was a legal term that exists under Canadian law. These were not Canadian companies. These were USA companies, Florida companies. They had gone on the internet and found a form and just put their names in basically and signed the bottom, right? But they had used an agreement that had been created for Canadian corporations. So it had these terms in them, which had absolutely nothing to do with USA law. That term doesn't even exist under our law. So I use that as an example of, yeah, you can find stuff out there on the internet that's helpful, right? But not everything on the internet is correct, right, guys? So the warning here today is that spending $1 on the front end will save you multiple times that money on the back end when the document that comes into play when it's important. When do they come into play? When there are problems, right? That operating agreement, which is the equivalent of a partnership or shareholder agreement, but in an LLC scenario, is what will govern between the partners who are members in an LLC scenario, and can be very important in unwinding the entity, right? I have people all the time go on, form an entity. What's the most recent one? They put themselves as registered agent, but failed to put themselves as a member. They didn't put anybody down as a member. They put the wrong person down as a member. Whoa, that means the wrong person owns the entity, or as an officer, maybe it was. Anyway, they're just, if you don't know the reason for the question, you don't know the answer. And if you can't do the answer with knowledge of what you're answering, you're gonna screw up your business. So that's my main point today. As you could tell, I'm passionate about small business. I'm passionate about the organizations that operate in small business, and I'm passionate about our clients having the right documents in place at any time during their existence, so that they can go out and do what they do best, things that I don't even understand, and prosper in the marketplace. So really, that is my main presentation today. If not Rock Solid Law, please bring on an attorney, have a relationship with a business lawyer who knows their subject matter and can assist you in making sure that everything's put together correctly. Yes, there are other good lawyers out there. Of course, we'd love for you to choose to have a chat with us and see if we're a good fit for each other. I would be delighted to take any questions for any of you that jumped on late. There is a chat bar right here. And if anybody has any questions about the LLC business entity, I would be delighted to take that at this point in time. I am not seeing anybody raise their hand today, which is not quite the usual. I know it's a rainy day. Maybe folks have not had their coffee. So we're going to follow up next week. I'm going to stay on this business series here during the month of, what are we in? Oh, John, May. And then, so next week will be why does a small business need a lawyer? Some of those points I hit today, of course. And then following that, when we get to June, we're going to be doing a whole series in estate planning on us being the sandwich generation, meaning we take care of both our children and our aging parents as people are learning to live longer, which I believe will be a very interesting series as well. So I'm not seeing anybody with a raised hand, so I must have absolutely, completely advised you on how to not screw up your business. And I just want to say it's my privilege that you chose to spend this time with me today. Should you have additional questions that you're not asking now, that would be questions at Rock Solid Law, and we'll get them answered. Thanks for being with us today, you guys. I'm John Miller, founding attorney, senior attorney, Rock Solid Law.